Europe didn't change. Your expectations did, and now they're collapsing. The dream you were sold isn't the reality you're stepping into anymore. Something has shifted. In 2026, France still dominates global tourism charts, pulling tens of millions of visitors. But beneath record numbers, something deeper is breaking. Trust is quietly eroding. The postcards promised romance, elegance, silence. What travelers now encounter feels different, louder, faster, heavier. The contrast between expectation and reality is becoming impossible to ignore. Social media, films, and curated travel content built a fantasy, a clean, poetic Europe. But real streets tell another story. Overflowing bins, noise, pressure, movement. Cities once designed for living are now struggling to handle volume. Infrastructure built decades ago is overwhelmed by millions moving through the same narrow spaces. You don't stroll anymore. You navigate. You don't admire. You wait. Travel has shifted from emotional escape into logistical survival in many iconic European cities. This growing gap has triggered something unexpected, psychological shock among visitors. A phenomenon now widely known as Paris syndrome is no longer rare. It happens when expectations collapse instantly. The dream breaks on arrival. For some, it leads to anxiety, disorientation, even panic during what was supposed to be a perfect trip. Long-haul travelers feel it most intensely. After investing time, money, and emotion, the mismatch hits harder. The disappointment isn't small, it's deeply personal. Especially among visitors from structured, quieter cultures, the shock multiplies. The gap between imagined Europe and lived Europe becomes almost impossible to process emotionally. And yet, the system continues. More flights, more bookings, more promotions. The machine keeps running even as satisfaction quietly declines behind the scenes. Tourism today isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. But the experience itself is fragmenting. What was once magical is now often mechanical and overwhelming. The uncomfortable truth is emerging. Travel is no longer just about beauty, culture, or romance. For many, it's becoming something else entirely. Tourism in its current form demands patience, tolerance, and endurance. Not everyone is prepared for that reality, and fewer are willing to accept it now. This is the beginning of a shift, not just in destinations, but in expectations. The collapse of the dream is forcing travelers to rethink everything. Paris is no longer a city you experience. It's a city you survive. The charm still exists, but it's buried beneath overwhelming crowds and constant movement. At the heart of it, Louvre Museum has transformed from a cultural sanctuary into a human traffic system, where space is negotiated rather than enjoyed. Visitors don't pause for art anymore. They move in waves, shoulder to shoulder, seconds per masterpiece. Culture has been compressed into a fast-moving visual checklist. Beyond museums, the streets of Paris struggle under pressure. Overflowing bins, noise, congestion, signs of a system stretched beyond its limits. Local neighborhoods are changing fast. Traditional bakeries and family shops are disappearing, replaced by souvenir stands, fast service cafes, and generic tourist-focused businesses. The result feels unsettling. A living city slowly turning into a staged experience. A place where authenticity fades, replaced by performance designed for constant visitor turnover. Move south to Nice, and the illusion of luxury begins to crack. The Riviera dream meets a very different physical reality. The beaches aren't soft or inviting, they're covered in rough gray pebbles. Walking barefoot becomes uncomfortable, yet prices continue to reflect premium expectations. Private beach clubs charge heavily for basic comfort. Visitors pay high prices, not for luxury, but simply to avoid discomfort on unforgiving surfaces. Even privacy has vanished. With overwhelming tourist density, relaxation becomes difficult. The very thing people travel for, escape, feels completely out of reach here. Then comes Mont-Saint-Michel, a place once defined by silence and spirituality, now dominated by movement and congestion. Visitors queue for long periods just to enter. Narrow streets fill quickly, turning a peaceful pilgrimage into a slow, crowded progression through tight spaces. Inside, commercial activity dominates. Souvenir shops and fast food counters replace quiet reflection. The sacred atmosphere struggles to survive under economic pressure. Further south, Marseille presents a different challenge, one shaped by instability, infrastructure strain, and visible social tension in daily life. The city's raw energy feels unpredictable. Tourists expecting Mediterranean charm often encounter discomfort instead. Noise, disorder, and an underlying sense of unease. Across these cities, one pattern repeats. Demand keeps rising, but the experience keeps declining. Systems built for beauty are now operating under constant pressure. France isn't losing its identity, it's losing balance. Too many visitors, too little space, and not enough adaptation to protect both residents and travelers. And this is where the shift begins. Travelers are starting to notice, and more importantly, they are starting to leave. Something quiet is happening in 2026. Travelers are no longer chasing famous names. They're walking away from them, searching for places that actually feel good. The shift isn't loud, but it's powerful. A new pattern is forming. Less hype, more meaning. People want space, calm, and experiences that feel real again. This is the rise of destination dupes. Not copies, but alternatives. Places offering the same beauty, without the pressure, noise, or overwhelming crowds. One of those places is Ljubljana, a city that doesn't compete for attention, yet quietly delivers everything modern travelers are craving today. Here, the center belongs to people, not traffic. Walking feels natural. Conversations flow. The city breathes at a human pace instead of rushing endlessly. There's no constant noise, no aggressive crowd flow, just clean streets, riverside cafes, and a sense of balance that feels almost unfamiliar after major cities. Safety isn't forced here, it's natural. You don't feel watched, you feel comfortable. That subtle difference changes the entire emotional experience of travel. Then there's Valencia, a city proving that tourism doesn't have to collapse under its own weight if managed intelligently. Valencia uses smart systems to distribute visitors. Crowds are controlled before they form. The experience feels smooth, not stressful or overwhelming. Instead of chaos, you find structure. Instead of pressure, you find flow. Technology here works quietly in the background to protect your experience. Green spaces like Jardín del Turia stretch through the city, replacing noise with calm. It feels like the environment was designed for living, not just visiting. And perhaps, most importantly, value feels fair. You pay, but you understand why. The experience matches the cost, without hidden frustration or disappointment. This shift reflects something deeper. Travelers are no longer impressed by labels. They're evaluating how a place makes them feel moment by moment. Fame is losing its power. Experience is gaining it. The old system built on reputation is slowly being replaced by one built on reality. People are choosing calm over chaos, space over crowds, authenticity over performance. The priorities of travel are being completely rewritten. This isn't a trend, it's a correction, a response to years of overload, pressure, and expectations that no longer match reality. And as this migration grows, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The future of travel will not belong to the most famous places. It will belong to the places that understand people the best. The definition of luxury has changed. It's no longer about price, status, or famous names. In 2026, luxury means something far more rare: space, silence, and control. After chaos, people don't want more stimulation. They want relief. They want places where nothing is forced, nothing is rushed, and nothing feels overwhelming anymore. This is where Kotor enters the story, not as a replacement, but as a reminder of what travel used to feel like. Kotor doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't compete. And that's exactly why it stands out in a world filled with noise and performance. Here, the landscape does the talking. Mountains drop directly into deep blue water, creating a natural drama that doesn't need filters or exaggeration. Walking through the old town feels different. It's not staged. It's not rushed. The environment invites you to slow down and actually notice details. There are no overwhelming chains, no aggressive commercialization. Even the absence of global fast food brands reflects a deeper commitment to cultural identity. Food here isn't designed for speed. It's prepared with intention. Local ingredients, slower service, and a connection between people that feels increasingly rare today. And then there's something almost forgotten: privacy. Not marketed, not sold, just naturally present. Space exists here without needing to pay extra for it. Even economically, the contrast is striking. Costs remain significantly lower, yet the quality of experience often feels far higher than crowded premium destinations. This is why a quiet shift is happening, not just among regular travelers, but among those who can go anywhere and still choose places like this. Because real luxury is no longer about being seen, it's about disappearing from noise, escaping pressure, and reconnecting with something real and human again. The contrast is now impossible to ignore. Crowded icons offer visibility, hidden places offer peace, and more people are starting to choose peace. This is not the end of famous destinations, but it is the end of blind admiration. Travelers are asking harder questions than ever before. Do you want recognition or restoration? Do you want movement or meaning? These choices are quietly redefining the entire travel landscape right now. Because in the end, a journey is not measured by photos, check-ins, or status. It's measured by how deeply it allows you to feel. And the future of travel will belong to those places that understand this simple truth. People are no longer chasing destinations. They're chasing peace.